contentious objector status, using the fact that the military has well, a whole legal process there. Just, I won't go into great detail on it, but the bottom line is that they are all trying desperately to highlight to the American people the predicament our military soldiers are in, our military personnel are in, that they are the ones that are being caught on the pawns of this war. They're the ones who are ordered into what many of them now feel, over 70% of them feel that it is a war that should not be happening and that they should be coming home. But they're the ones that are having to stand up to the system, because they're the ones that are going to have the post-traumatic stress syndrome for all of the actions that they've done or the things that they've seen while they're in Iraq. And over 8,000 of them, between 8,000 and 40,000 of them have gone AWOL. The consistent figure is 8,000, but there are reports that maybe up to 40,000 men and women of the armed forces are now AWOL. Well over 300 of them now are in Canada. We've had some of those who have returned from Canada, and one of whom has been court-martialed, another one got an administrative discharge, and a third one can't find anyone who will take him to even court-martialing. But the bottom line is there's a lot of dissent within the military right now, to include an appeal for redress. Over 1,300 active duty military personnel who have signed an appeal to the U.S. Congress that the Congress end this war in Iraq. An almost unprecedented statement, other than the precedent was in Vietnam, where 1,500 active duty servicemen and women took out an ad in the New York Times with their names on it saying, "This war must stop." So we've got a lot of very, very strong and proud people, proud of their military service on one level, but not proud of what the Bush administration is doing with the military. So people like Mark Wilkerson are folks that we need to treasure, because they are the ones that are willing to put their bodies on the line. Not on the line for murdering and criminal activity, but on the line for conscience and morality, and to hold accountable an administration that is putting our nation at risk, putting our military at risk, putting our military into a situation where our national security is really being jeopardized by the actions of this administration. Jeopardized in Iraq, jeopardized in Afghanistan, and potentially, unless we, the people, make sure that the administration does not go into Iran. So we've got a lot of work here. We've got a lot of work to support people like Mark Wilkerson, to be here as you are tonight, and we thank you all so very, very much. And I think we can all say on behalf of Mark that we thank you so very much for taking time out and to honor him. And I know we will be seeing him tomorrow, maybe just in the hallway during the court-martial, but we'll certainly pass on the fact that you all were here and here in great support of him. I would like to introduce the next speaker, a lady who has really been doing remarkable things on behalf of the Stop the War movement. A woman who is a co-founder of Iraq Veterans Against the War, a woman who is a combat veteran herself, having served in Iraq, 8 years in the Army National Guard, and a great spokesperson for conscience and morality in today's world. Kelly Daugherty.
Well, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. I work now for Iraq Veterans Against the War full-time in the office in Philadelphia, and we're an organization of close to 400 right now, and we continue to grow every week of men and women who've served in the military since September 11th who are opposed to the war and call for an immediate withdrawal of all occupying forces from Iraq. And attending Mark's court-martial and coming to Austin this week is really, I think, for myself, kind of two-pronged, because for the first of all, we definitely in Iraq Veterans Against the War support war resisters. We support the military getting a voice and getting empowered to speak against or to act against this war that is taking more and more lives every day. And I think it's very important for our organization to show that from the leadership of the organization on down to every member, we are going to be there for our brothers and sisters who are going to stand up and say no to this war and no to the occupation. And second of all, Mark's also a close friend of mine, and I met him in Colorado Springs, which is where I lived before moving to Philadelphia. And Mark was I think I was one of the first veterans from Iraq that Mark met after he went AWOL and came back to Colorado Springs, which is where he was from. I got back from Iraq in February of 2004. I'd spent almost a year there as a military police sergeant with my National Guard unit. And we were stationed in southern Iraq near the city of Nasiriyah. And much of what we did was convoy escorts and patrols. We also did traffic checkpoints, raids. Basically, a lot of what soldiers are doing now in Iraq are these basic military police duties. And Mark was also a military policeman in Iraq, and he got home, could not reconcile himself with everything that he'd seen and done while in Iraq. He really felt like a changed person, got denied for his conscientious objector claim, and had to make the tough decision to go AWOL. And I think I hear a lot when I speak and I tell my story and talk about the things that are happening every day in Iraq. People say a lot, well, if it's so bad, or if so many bad things are happening, why don't soldiers just stop going? Why don't they just refuse? And for someone to actually refuse, such as Mark did, that's a really, really difficult decision. Because when you join the military, you become, for one, very financially dependent on the military. And for someone to resist and to say, I'm not going back, that not only do they lose their paycheck, but then they incur thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees if they want to continue to fight and continue to draw attention to their case. And second of all, when you join the military, you really form a new family among the men and women that you're serving with. And when you get deployed to a place like Iraq, you know that basically, regardless of how you feel about the mission or the reasons for the war, the number one reason that our men and women are in Iraq are because of the people to the right and to the left of them. And I've spoken to members of IDAW who've come home who say they're so against this war, but they're thinking about re-enlisting because they're worried about their friends who are going to have to go back for a second and a third time. And they feel like they just can't abandon their friends to do that all by themselves. So there's a very strong personal responsibility to your brothers and sisters in the military. And also I think in our society there's so much of this mentality that the military is good, service in the military is honorable. Even if we can agree that the war is wrong, we still look to the soldiers and the people serving in the military as this kind of a sacred kind of spot in our society. And for someone to refuse that system and to step away and say, no, this is wrong, I will not continue to participate. Even people who oppose the war often say, well, you signed up for it, this is what you should do. You shouldn't be saying anything against it. So I think for someone like Mark, like Augustine, like Aaron Watada to come out and say no, it's a huge step, and they really need our support. And tomorrow, before Mark's court-martial, if any of you are interested and available, from 7:30 to 9:30, we'll be having a rally of support outside the base at Fort Hood. And for anyone who would like to attend Mark's court-martial, any fellow veterans, friends, supporters, that will probably also be possible as well. There's about 40 seats in the courtroom. When I got back from Iraq in 2004, I really felt like, even though when I went into Iraq in the first place, I did not support the war, I still felt like I didn't have any other options but to go, and I did feel obligated, and I knew my friends were going. And I spent a year there, and over the year, it was just the day-to-day grind of the occupation and seeing what my participation, what negative consequences it was having on the people of Iraq, on the people that I was serving with. I went over thinking basically that the people in my unit were good people, that they were my friends or good acquaintances, and to see the kind of really horrible things that can happen when you're put into a situation like that so quickly, turning from someone who says they want to go over there to help the Iraqi people to the next day basically treating the people very violently with extreme force. And meanwhile, the Iraqi people living in poverty, living